post anything. I didn't do anything today.
Didn't you?
Jesus. Yeah.
We're on live now. Just so you know.
Great. Thanks a lot, Rick.
I said we got 15 seconds to go, and then you said, "Well, we could be late." I go, "Well, maybe."
I did say that. I said, it's okay if we're late a few seconds. Come on.
Come on.
I'm on Italian time. Don't you get that?
Yeah, there's something about that, right? I mean, it's just like relax, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
An Italian in New York City. That's a nice blend with timing. Yeah. I mean, whenever I land in Italy, it takes me a whole week to kind of absorb the speed and it's okay,
yeah.
It just actually really triggers me at the beginning and then I get used to it. So,
Well, that
hello,
teaches.
Adina.
Hey, Dina. It. I like how you say, sort of like you get wrapped up or trapped in the speed of how things are just flowing through, and then you
Hmm.
go to a different culture or different lifestyle, and it's like, oh my goodness, right? I know. I when I lived on Salt Spring, they had a thing called Salt. It's a smaller island from where I am, and I used to kid that the average age on the island was deceased because it was at the time I was there. There was quite a few older people, and now that I'm in that age group, it's sort of like, wait a minute.
That was a
But
bad joke.
yeah, it turned out to be a really bad joke. But there was a thing called Salt Spring Time,
Mm.
and I didn't understand it because I came from a bigger center, and when you scheduled something, it 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 usually got done, or if there was something wrong, kind of a thing. Hey, Rob, good to see you again.
Hey, Rob. Yeah, no, I'm telling you, I have to deal with like heavy sweating, a lot of heavy breathing when I'm there the first week. It's just like, come on, do it a little bit faster, a little bit fast. I mean, I come from New York City, right? And then
Yeah,
I land in Italy, and it's like
yeah.
there's no rush for anything. And I have to, yeah, I'm like from the north, where things are actually fast comparatively, right?
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
still not as fast as I needed. So there's a lot of like deep breaths, like it's just the way it is here. And then I get used to it. And when I come back, it's a rude awakening.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we're back, you know? But yeah, everything is
Yeah.
relative in time. So you know what? If one day we're a couple of seconds late, so be it.
Well, it really is, and it's funny. We did talk a little bit prior to this, but it's what we put on that. It's like the pressure that we. Hey, Randall, good to see you. It's the pressures that we put on that, right? It's like, oh, I can't be late. Well, you could, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's all the thinking that we put on being late. Well, if I'm being late, that means I'm being irresponsible. And if am being irresponsible, people are not going to take me seriously. And if people aren't taking me seriously, I'll never be able to build a business. And if I don't be able to business, I can't feed my kids. And if I don't feed my kids,
It's so interesting because as you're talking, I'm thinking about myself. I'm one of those people that's like 5 minutes late sometimes. I'm
oh,
not going
you're
to
one of
say
those. Oh,
I'm one of those. And when I do get to for work, I'm actually always on time. But like, if I have to meet someone, I may be 5 minutes late. And if I get there early, I get anxious.
yeah,
I get really anxious. I'm like, what? Am I in the wrong place? Oh, this is annoying. Now I have to wait. Like it's the opposite of what you go through, right? It's like, this sucks. I had another extra 5 minutes if I wanted to.
I could have done something better with my
I
hair.
know. Yeah. I could have gone back to pick up that other purse,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever it is. Yeah, it's fascinating. Everything is so relative in life.
It is. It is. It and that's the interesting thing, about that. It is so relative. About
Yeah.
Nadine says it drives me nuts when people are late for work or appointments, and some people welcome that. They
I
welcome
mean,
that.
listen, it annoys me too. It really annoys me too. I do have like a personal life filter where that's okay. The 5 minutes are okay. I don't stress over it.
Yeah,
Let's put it that way. Like, yeah, when I get there, on time, but if I'm 5 minutes late, it definitely does not take me into all those places. I'm okay with
yeah,
it.
yeah. I, and we all got that sort of piece of tolerance, I guess, built into us. The thing
Mhm.
that we've learned to live with as we move forward. But yeah, so we actually wanted to. How did we come up with this topic called motivation?
I
How
mean,
were
it's a
we
big one.
motivated to talk about motivation?
Well, I think we decided to talk about motivation. At least for me, it was about stuckness,
Yes,
right? Which is another big topic. They're like related to each other, right?
I think they're like almost two sides to a
Yeah,
coin. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I think you proposed motivation. I was like, oh, I was thinking about like how to get unstuck and being stuck. I think that's a pretty big topic for most clients that I've had the pleasure of coaching. Like they're stuck somewhere, blocked, stuck, whatever you want to call it. And there's part motivation and part, a story, right? That's playing out against the thing that they believe they want to do,
yes, yes.
right?
And you said a couple of key things. One is the stories that seem to anchor us in that stuckness, and the other half of that is the things that we think we want to do.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
want to elaborate a bit on that? I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Oh, thanks a lot, Rick. I thought you had a book you wanted to talk about. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we often believe that we want to do something, right? And that decision, that belief is driven by our logical brain, right?
Yes.
And then we get stuck and we don't understand why. Well, I really want to do this thing, but I'm not acting on it. The problem is that there's a greater force within you, something that you're blindsided to, or that you're not willing to look at, that you're trying to avoid, or they're not consciously trying to avoid, you just can't see, that's playing out in the background, right? It's a different agenda that's running at the same time. Those agendas that are running at the same time are typically there to protect us from something or a need that we have that we're not fulfilling, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So the need to pursue the thing that you think you want to pursue is driven maybe by your logical brain. Well, that makes sense. If I do this, then this and this happens.
Yeah.
But then there's a greater need perhaps that's not being met, maybe on a personal level, on a self-care level. Obviously it's hard to just generalize because it depends on what it is. But the reason why you're not doing this thing, it's not what we typically automatically go to. I'm lazy, I'm not good at this, and we start beating ourselves up. Instead, we could look at the reason why we're stuck and not moving as, well, there's a little message there. There's a little signpost there that there's something for you to look at. Like you need to change the oil, or like there's a problem with the engine, like there's something going on there that, it's like there's a light blinking, and we tend to really make ourselves responsible for that, criticize ourselves, or go into all those disempowering places, right?
Yeah.
Instead
Yeah.
of really seeing it for what it is. It's a message. There's something about this big great plan that you have over here that you have to talk to yourself into is not quite clicking with the rest of you, right?
And and you said, and I want to expand that a little bit about what you were saying about talking yourself into, like you feel that, okay, like I've got to, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do, but you're finding yourself, sort of like going the extra mile to try and somehow motivate you to magically keep moving you forward. So what tendency what the tendency is to start looking for external things to motivate you, right?
Absolutely.
And from a business point of view, businesses have been trying external motivation to get their staff to do things for eons, right? I mean, it started off with a paycheck, and then it started off with, well, if we get more production, we'll give you some benefits. If we or like in sales is really, really heavily driven on the reward system.
Hmm.
So they have, if you get five extra clients this month, or five extra sales, you'll get a bonus, right? And in the book I'm reading, which I'm not, I'll plug the book, but I'm not getting any proceeds from it. I should actually talk to her about this. But Chantel Burns um, wrote a book called Instant Motivation, and it's based on research that she's done, and research that other companies did. And she went around to, I believe it was like 80 different organizations and firms and Fortune 500 companies, and talked about the things that motivated staff to do things, and they had all sorts of different incentive plans and other things. But what she found interesting was that it was anything that was externally offered was hit and miss. Like
Mm.
some people kind of bought into it and did it, but there was a whole lot of other people that could care less about the extra bonus or whatever kind of a thing. And then there was other things around that she noticed that people were just doing the work because they liked doing the work. It had nothing to do with the incentive. And I found that out. I remember, I don't know where I read it, but I remember at a really young age, and it actually turned out to be a John Lennon quote. I didn't even know that, but like, all I really wanted to be was happy at whatever I was doing. Didn't matter what I was doing, but as long as I was happy. And somebody said, well, as long as you're happy at what you're doing, the money will always come. Like, all those other things will always happen, right? So I took that to heart. I really took that to heart. And you know, I had a lot of different jobs in the beginning until I kind of landed on something that I just felt it was my calling. And I literally could do that for nothing. And at the start, that's exactly what I did. I volunteered. I got a very small stipend to do it, but I literally would do it for nothing. But yeah, so there's something that's not quite right with external motivation, and really, like you said, it's a lot more pointing inside that makes the fundamental difference.
Yeah, because most likely the decision that you made out of logics, right, the
Yeah,
left brain, has to do with what makes sense, right? But it's kind of bypassing what aligns with you,
yeah,
right? What truly meets your values and what fulfills you and what you want to pursue, or there's a part of you that's not being fulfilled, aligned, or like overworked, or not cared for or seen, right? Those are the typical things that are running in the background that are not, like, well, I want to accomplish this. I have a motivation because the ultimate goal is to, let's say, get this other job that's my dream job. But you're running yourself to the ground, never resting, never taking any breaks. And so there's this part of you that's really depleted, right?
yeah,
So yeah, maybe you're on the right track because the motivation is driven by the right thing, but you're not in integrity with things that keep you running properly, efficiently, right? You're not taking care of yourself. I mean, that's just an example, but there's always a conflict. There's it's a standstill. Being stuck is a standstill, right?
hmm,
And of course, when the motivation is not even there because you didn't really think about whether or not it aligns with you, then that's the very thing that keeps you stuck, right? Well,
yeah.
this is not really aligned. I'm not. My heart is not into it, right?
You hear a lot of
Doing
that.
the
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Doing this thing doesn't really fulfill me. I have no interest in it,
yeah,
right? So motivation, can we find motivation to do the things that we love? Absolutely. But we're so complex, right? We're these layered beings. There's all these different needs that we also have at the same time, right? And sometimes it's very, very easy to lose track of that in the name of our purpose, in the name of the thing that motivates us to do things or to accomplish something. And it's so in those instances I find that it's difficult to figure out, why am I not doing this? This is my dream. This is the thing that I want to accomplish, and yet I'm not taking the steps towards it.
Hmm.
And I would invite people to really like sit back and see, well, what are all these other needs that I have within me? What is being depleted? What part of me is not being heard or seen or, considered?
Well, and so there's a couple of things that sort of resonate with me is, and it was interesting in her book and in her research that the things that people were pointing towards that were holding them back, or what they felt were holding them back, were external things.
Mm,
If conditions were better, then that would happen. If I was younger, that would make a difference. If I was older, that would make a difference. Now I got caught in that trap, right? Because I remember being young and sort of looking, and I was comparing myself to a lot of the older, because I was in insurance sales uh, quite young, and I'm looking at all the senior guys, right? And there's some really successful people in insurance, and I'm going, it's like I bought into, I'm too young, kind of a thing, right? Wait till I'm older. Now I'm older, and I'm going, look at all those young bucks.
but like, so when you look at that, I mean, that's a great example, right? When you
Yeah,
look at that, it's like, well, what's there? It's something on an emotional level that needs to be
absolutely.
resolved,
But
right? So
it has nothing to do with
it's a
reality.
need. Yeah, it's still a need. You need to look at this and resolve this
Yeah.
conflict within you that you don't feel like, maybe it's fear of rejection. Maybe it's imposter syndrome. Maybe it is fear of failure. Whatever it is, right? It's
Whatever it is.
still a need
Yeah.
to that you need to address. You need to address the need for this piece of you to be resolved or looked at or acknowledged, seen, right?
Yeah. And it means, for me, it's just indicating or looking towards, okay, so what is the quality of my thinking in the moment? Right. And,
Mhm.
and that's something that you kind of pointed to a few minutes ago, is this whole notion of, something comes up, whatever it is, we're stuck, right? And I think I talked about this last week, but all of a sudden, rather than looking at solutions for this, we look for implications of solving the issue. So we go
Mhm.
right away into, okay, well, if this was actually taken care of, what does that mean for my future? And sometimes that future doesn't look so good, thinking that somehow that is the cause of it, right? So, a lot of things that I look at about, especially the things that I don't necessarily want to do. I don't know. Have you ever done something you don't want to do?
Yeah, filing bills, one of those things, filling out forms for school.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But somehow we find a way to doing it.
yeah. After kicking the can down the road as far as I
Well,
can. But it's true. We just beat like time pressure,
what
parental duty, or what it is. Yeah, we get it done.
we find something that switches the view, that somehow it just gets done,
Yeah,
right? And to me, that's kind of the magic piece of when we let go of, that ladder of inference, when we let go of that belief systems that we wrap ourselves around, that says I'm not good enough, or life is tough, and there's all this struggle, and people don't care, all that stuff. When we let go of that, there's a natural motivation that happens, at least for me. There's a natural motivation where it just seems like, oh, that's the next step. I only have to do the next step. I don't have to do what's going to happen next week, because I really don't know what's going to happen next week. So for me, getting motivated is not about, oh, I've got to get this all done. All it really is um, what do I need to do right now? What is the step in front of me? What am I being guided to do? And follow the feeling of that, because it tends to, in my experience, be a lot more gentler than, oh shit, I got to do this. I should be doing this. Well, maybe not. Maybe not.
Still gotta pay those bills.
I know. I know.
I've tried ignoring them; they don't go away.
No.
No, but I'm joking now. I hear you. Yeah, I mean, like all things, like really getting focused on the one step that's before you is the only way, and it really is the only action we can take,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we can plan ahead, sure. Plans, action plans are great, but in the doing, you can only do something in the present moment, right? You can only take action right then and there. And we often actually like looking at the future can really, like keep us stuck, right? Because then we get overwhelmed, and then we lose sight of what motivates us.
So what
What the
is
reason.
what does stuck look like to you?
What does stuck look like to me? Many different, many different shades of stuckness. I think inaction, confusion, like just or taking action that's not really making sense in the grand scheme of things, feeling unsure, wanting to do something and never taking action on it, right? It can have different
Margaret,
aspects to it.
did I share that fear chart? I can't remember. I'm going to do it again. Can I do it again?
No, you didn't show the future. You showed it to me before the show.
Oh, hang on. Well, hey, how about if I just write it out again? It's much easier to write it out again, because then I can make new scribbles, right? So this is that acronym of fear. How was that? Did I get anywhere?
No,
No.
you need to go the other way. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there we go. Okay. So so I've got fear, and I looked at the word, and originally I like the acronym false emotions appearing real, kind of a thing, right? So it's like, we have these emotions and they look real and all that other kind of stuff. But when I looked at the word again, something just hit me, and I broke the word down, and so I looked at it from feelings and emotions, which creates our moods. Okay. And then A was actions, and then R gave us our results. So from a motivational point of view, the lower my mood, the less action, the less results
Hmm.
appear, right? So when I had sort of insecure thinking, or fear-based thinking, or that those feelings of overwhelmness and all those kind of stuff, those things kind of put me in that low mood state. And then anytime I wanted to act at this level, I would just naturally get poorer performance. Like it just kind of worked out that way, because I've never noticed in myself I've been a peak performer when I'm in a shitty mood. As a matter of fact, the less I wanted to do less, like
Of course, yeah,
right? I
makes
want to go.
sense.
Yeah, I just want to watch Netflix for the next 10 days, kind of a thing. Right?
Yeah.
So, so what was interesting in Chantel's book is when she did the questionnaires, state of mind was low on the priority list for high performance. What people were looking towards was not their state of mind, but they were looking more towards
Skills, yeah.
skill and knowledge as the answer to better results. And and what they were finding is it didn't matter how good they got or how smart they were, the results were not rising up as long as this
Was
was
low,
where.
yeah.
Yeah. And this is that invisible force that you talk about. This is the internal stuff. This is all eternal, right? Well, if I take another workshop, that'll make a difference. If I get better at what I'm doing, if I get better at closing my sales, that will make a difference, right? But it's all a matter of where our state of mind is in the moment. Period.
It's your engine, right? It's like, see
It's your
what's wrong with your engine.
check engine light, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So
And that's
if that part, there's something faulty in that part, you're stuck because the system is not allowing you to move forward.
yeah.
So you can avoid all you want, right? And stuckness often does look like avoidance, right? Because we don't immediately recognize it, right? We're just like, I'm gonna do more. I'm gonna like wake up earlier. I'm gonna schedule more stuff, right?
Well, that's the other part, right? People look at, okay, if I do more, I'll get better results. And that just looks like, oh man, I'm putting 12 hours in, 14 hours in, kind of a thing, right? No, the secret is that internal engine. Is how you fuel it. Now, we have several people on the line here, and I'm curious. Does this resonate with anybody? Like, does this make sense for it with people? So just put that in the chat, in the comment, and if you're watching this um, on a recording, I'd love to hear your comments. And Dina says, "Yeah, so good and so right." Yeah, especially when we get in touch, in tune with that internal engine, right? And I remember you saying earlier about um, your check engine light was on during a coaching session where you just felt like, oh my goodness, it's a timeout time. it's a I need a you kind of a break time, right? Because you were heading over into this realm, right? And to realize that, right away, we can start to adjust, right? Yeah.
And,
I
recognize it and don't take any action when you're there, right?
Well, that is the key.
Take take limited action, or like take reversible action, or like type an email and save to draft.
Yeah.
Type an email in your notes and save it. Whatever it is, right? Don't do not react, because the moment that you're acting from that place, you're taking action that's not necessarily empowering, right?
Well,
I
it's
don't want to. I don't want to say wrong. It's
no,
probably not the most empowering action
no.
you can take. Yeah.
But if you're not getting the results that you want, check your check your engine light. Like, where
Yeah.
where are you in your mood state? Like, in your mind state, right? Because it's but for some reason, it's really funny. Like, we see it. Actually, my brother-in-law runs. He's a manager of a fast food restaurant, and uh, I kind of he was telling me a scenario, and like, I don't know what they teach him in school and things like that. A lot of what he does is very intuitive as a manager, very intuitive. And his wisdom, his intuition was spot on, right? He sees this employee who's in a kind of a low state, right? Not performing well and getting poor results, right? And we recognize it, right? He recognizes it in others, and immediately he says, "You've got to calm down. You got to take a step away from it, right? You're getting too wrapped up in it. Like you said, take a time out." And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, right, right." But here's the funny part, and whether he watches this later or not, I don't know. But when he was sharing with me a different moment, there was no recognizing that he was in this same state. Like
Mm-hmm.
we get so caught up in the woods, we don't see the check engine light.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, we ignore it and we go into our intellect and say, okay, wait a minute, maybe I need more knowledge, maybe I need more skill, or I need to do more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really interesting how we can see it in others, but we've got these blinders when it comes to us. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else has ever experienced that, but
100%. I
yeah.
certainly have. I was reading the chat. I like what Adina is writing about confidence in what you're doing helps you take action and have less fear. Um, because it goes back to what I was mentioning to you before we started the show that this mastermind I was in today, we were talking about the relationship between motivation and confidence, right? And
Yes.
how both of these elements and the balance, the fine balance between these two is what brings on change, right? You can't just have motivation. And if you're not confident that you can do it, then that alone is not going to drive you to take the actions that will, because confidence is a low mood, like lack of confidence is a low mood, right? State.
Yep.
So having confidence is crucial in combined with motivation in like actually taking action, being able to change yourself or whatever it is, right? For transformation for sure. But also having a lot of confidence and not having the motivation is not going to take you there either, right?
So
It's
what do you,
not.
so when you say lack of confidence, and I know Dina brought it up, and she's welcome to throw it into the chat. But when you say a lack of confidence, where do you think a lack of confidence is actually coming from? Like what
Well,
is that?
not, it's a story that you believe that you can't do something, that you're not capable of doing something. Sometimes it has to do with not having enough knowledge about something or enough skill, right? So confidence can be increased by increasing your skill sets, increasing your knowledge, understanding, what you can and cannot do, right? Believing in yourself, right? So there's many different ways that that confidence can grow, but alone is not going to go anywhere if you don't have your why, right? Because motivation is really like where are you headed, like what really drives you to go or do or change or so both those elements are crucial. The balance between the two determines your success in transformation and change, and it
And
makes a lot
yeah,
of sense.
absolutely. And what I have experienced is there is there has to be an element of action, right?
Of course, yeah.
You can't just if skills is what it appears to be, then great, right? The question is, how do you know if it's true or not true? Like, how do you know that you need more skill, right? Because what I've known is that a lot of times when we're not in our head, when we have quieter thinking going on, because being in less confidence is a low mood state, right? Obviously, if I'm on a high, I got all the confidence in the world. What's the difference? It's my thinking around the situation. It's my thinking around the problem. So how many layers of thinking am I putting on the actual situation that's making it look like a problem or making it look like a lack of confidence? So for me, it's sort of like, because then it almost looks like future based thinking again, because I don't have enough confidence to move forward. So and how does that look? Well, if I go forward and people question me and I don't have an answer, it looks like a lack of
Yeah,
confidence.
yeah, but what is that? That's the
What
lack
is
of
that?
confidence. Yeah, it comes from fear of rejection, comes from, fear of failure, right? It all goes back to what's underneath that, right? Yeah, it comes out as I'm not confident in this. But in order to fix that confidence piece, you have to look at the rejection piece, the, fear of failure piece, like there's no getting away from it. Even if it's just fear of rejection, it's really not allowing you to feel confident enough to perform the action that you need to perform, right? So confidence is a label, What's
Yep.
behind that is more layered than just that. And sometimes it may just be, I need to learn about this subject, right? I can't confidently tell you take this medicine or this one unless I read about it, So yeah, confidence can also be, can also be grown through more knowledge and more skill. And at the same time, it can become the excuse, right? I
Well,
need
and
more knowledge.
that
I need more
that's
skill.
that's the double-edged course
Yeah,
of the sword,
yeah,
right? Is that it may look like extra knowledge and extra skill is the answer to confidence, but it's really an internal thing because that's an external mechanism, right? And I've never found, external things have been the ultimate motivation, right? Because it's really about taking action in spite of my thinking. So in spite of, I'm not sure if I know enough. Well, here's my secret. Here's my 100% antidote for not knowing enough. You only talk about what you know. Period.
true, true. Or, listen, it kind of like in the coaching world, I think the prime example of that is like someone new to coaching. I don't feel confident enough to coach. And yet, what's going to grow your good confidence in coaching? Coaching, right? So yeah, you have to take action in spite of the fear. And I think it is fair to say that that will increase your confidence in that area, right?
Well,
But all
it gives you better understanding, right? Because when you're in the thinking, which is the stuck mode, right? So you're in the thinking, which is the stuck mode. Action gets you forward, right? It also gives you your, because when you say I don't have enough knowledge or confidence, when you the only real way you're ever finding out is actually when you take that step, and then you
Mhm.
get the feedback, because everything that happens from that point on is just feedback.
And then the feedback triggers, if you're a
what,
rejection,
what you
triggers
do with
I'm
that
not,
feedback.
I'm not good enough, triggers I'm not going to do it again because I'm going to fail, right? So yeah, it's very much the story. All of it is the
All of
story.
it,
All
yeah.
of it.
Just
Yeah.
take it for what it is, right? So like, you talk about your experiences, you talk about what you know, and then everything past that is just feedback that lets you know, right? It doesn't let you know what kind of person you are. It just lets you know where you're at.
That's you got to coach a couple more times before you go there. That happened to me.
Maybe, right?
In the beginning, I got yelled at in my, beginning stages once, and it was feedback. It was actually, I'm actually really proud of the way I took it back then because I was
Yep.
like, oh wow, yeah, not don't do that again. Right?
And you don't.
That didn't work, like okay, that's not a good way. It doesn't mean that I didn't have a point. It doesn't mean that I wasn't seeing the things that I was seeing. I just didn't I just didn't present it in a way that the person could receive it, right? So it was
Not,
actually great feedback. It was amazing
yeah,
feedback for me. Yeah.
but it's not a reflection of who you really are.
No, no.
No,
But it does
all
take a
this is
certain
not.
level of, sure, but it takes a certain level of self-awareness and confidence in who you are to take the feedback that way.
Sure, yeah.
What do you think of that?
Well, it's a funny word, confidence, because it is subjective in the sense, like, your experience of that is different. Like, we have 8 billion different experiences out there, right? And this is the problem with the English language, is that, you know, I can say, well, what motivates you? As a matter of fact, like the people that are on here right now or watching at the recording, put in the comments, what motivates you? What do you feel is motivates you? What gets you up in the morning, right? And and it means different things for different people. So if we had 80 people on here, there would be kind of 80 different answers in a way, right? Some will have some common themes. You can categorize that. The problem with these self-help books that sort of point to 10 best ways to get motivated, right? Well, the guy that wrote that book, that's what he did. Right? And he wrote about it, but it's something in it that resonates with us. And it just seems like, okay, it seems like, oh, I need to let me figure out what these 10 ways are. And then we try them, and then it's like, well, it's not really working. Well, it won't work because you are you. And
Yeah,
that's where you have to do you, right?
it works for those who resonate with that, who speaks the same language, right? We all hear things and differently, we speak differently, right? And we feel seen and heard differently. And that's why there can be like 1,000 of those guys writing about the same subject, just in a slightly different way. And there's always going to be someone who's going to resonate with one and not the other. And they're
Yeah.
all saying the same thing basically, but not really. They're just saying it in a slightly different language, right?
Yeah. No, it's an interesting field, but it really is about, a lot of it is your state of mind. Because when you take the book, or you take the lessons, or you go to the teacher, right? um there's levels of understanding that comes with this. So when you're in a better mood and you're reading that same book, it's sort of like, well, where do these extra pages come from? Or, you know when the student is open and the teacher says something, it's like, well, I never heard about that. Well, I've been actually saying it for the last 3 weeks. Kind of, right? But we get caught up in the content of our thinking, and that's all we hear. So it's, and that's, for me, that's always been the antidote for getting unstuck, is to realize how much I'm in the content of my thinking, how much I'm into my story, however you want to describe it. And the minute I kind of release that, or know that I am where I'm at, there's some traction that already happens. And then I realize at that moment, oh, wait a minute, I'm thinking about next week's stuff, and really all I need to do is clean up my landing page on my website, or something along those lines, right?
I mean, and then sometimes that stuckness is the feedback, right?
Well, it
Is
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 feedback.
the
It's all
is
feedback.
the yeah, it's like the redirection, like, well, you're stuck because that motivation you had up there, it's not there anymore, or it was never fully there, or like, just check in with all these different parts and see what's keeping you there, right? What's
Well,
underneath this
well, isn't life
stuckness?
feedback? Period.
Yeah, a lot of it.
I mean, for
A
me,
lot of it.
that's all it is. It's because I truly believe that we're always experiencing life through the feelings of our thinking, because it's a thought created world. So it's 100% feedback of where I am here.
And you know what? And the way the brain works, the brain doesn't like to have any open loops. The brain likes to take things and put them somewhere, right?
Oh, I like
Categorize them,
nice neat
right?
packages, nice neat.
Nice and neatly, right? So we put it there, we categorize it, we close the loop, we put it away, and then the system doesn't work. We're stuck. And we don't want to go back and look at it again because, damn, I already put it away. Like, I don't want to pull it out again. It goes a little bit against our nature, right? Against how the brain works. But that's very much a part of the reason why we are so blindsided to it
Well, and
often, right?
that's where you're like, would you like to point towards, is the fight or flight, right? Fight or flight happens down here, right? It never happens when we're in a happy mood and things are going smooth, right? But it always happens down here. So we're always being in protective mode. We're always being guarded. And that's what our ego's job is to do, is to keep us safe, right? It's gathered enough evidence throughout our whole life to say, hey, when this is happening, this is what you need to do. You need to do this and that, right? But nothing fresh and new ever comes from that.
I
It's
mean,
just,
it's also, yeah, it's also the way, the brain just is efficient, right? Which
oh, it's a
is
good
not,
machine.
which is not necessarily what's best for us, right? But that really, like, yeah, I would really invite people to look at being stuck as really this gift of information that you're not seeing, you're blindsided to. If you're stuck, there's something you need to look at, period. There's no buts or ifs. If you're stuck, you need to take it out. Take it out of the drawer, file drawer, and look at it. Is it my motivation? Is it my purpose? Is it what's behind the stuckness? Is there a fear there? Is there a need that's unmet? Right? and the longer you stay stuck is because you're just pretending it's not there. You're just pretending that, like, oh yeah, I'm taking more action. I'm gonna put more stuff in here. Like I'm gonna do more. I'm gonna put in 3 extra hours of work today, and I'm gonna get it done. And then you don't get it done, and then you feel bad about it. Feel bad about yourself. Maybe I'm just lazy. I'm not taking action. You're really looking. You're just wasting time,
Yeah.
right? Staying in the story instead of really looking at, okay, I'm stuck. The stuckness is telling me something. What is it? Spill it out. Let's do
and,
this.
and be open to it, and know it, like you said, know it that it's only feedback and it's not a reflection of who you really
It
are.
doesn't define you. Yeah, it doesn't define who
Not
you are.
defined.
You
It
know,
only describes the moment that you're in at this moment of time, period. Right. And but it's interesting, like when you were saying about putting in the work and all that. Like I'm in this workshop right now, creating the impossible, right? So everybody, there's like 200 of us, all wanting to create an impossible project or complete it in 90 days, kind of a thing, right? And there's some really interesting ones out there, but the criteria of the project is hard work alone cannot get it done. So in other words, if you come up with something, and this is what normally happens when we're in a low mood, is that we think that if we work hard enough, we're gonna get motivated, and we're gonna get out of the slump, right? And no, it is never ever about working harder, working smarter, maybe,
more efficiently. Yeah,
right? And sports guys know this, right? The coaches that are in the sports world, their their secondary role is on the mechanics of the sport, but their primary role is to get the head straight, to get the mind quieted enough so that they're running on, right, with there's less thinking, right? That's you can tell. You watch any sport, kind of a thing. One week this guy's doing super, super good, right? He's a top athlete, gets $1 million every time he does it, right? Next week he can barely catch a puck or a ball, right? It's like, what happened? It had nothing to do with the skill and knowledge,
nothing. Yeah,
but I
absolutely
but I
nothing.
but I bet he's in his head someplace, right? Might have been a conversation that the coach had with him. It might have been whatever, but mindset has so much of a key place in people motivation and truly getting the results that they want out of life. And I really truly believe that the more we're in touch with this scale and paying attention to our engine light, um, and seeing for what it is, we'll do so much better in this world, so much better. And Adina agrees.
I'm glad she does.
Yeah, somebody's got it. Like, but yeah, no, it is a interesting part, because I mean, people do tend to get in that way, right? They talk about motivation and I know there's been a lot of days where I dragging myself out of bed, kind of a thing. And it's like, oh man, and especially as a paramedic, you see so much and you feel like nothing's ever making a difference. And so
As you're talking, something comes. I don't know why this popped into my mind, like
share.
because like motivational speakers. I was thinking about Tony Robbins, right?
Oh yeah.
And how successful he is at like motivating people and pumping them and pumping them and pumping them, right? And I
Yeah.
think I must be one of the few people that I only like fell for it once in one of those like free 5 days thing. And then it was like so much thrown at me that I was like, I can't do this. It's just not my style, right? And I'm not saying that he's not good. I think he's a genius. I mean, look at what he has built.
Yeah.
The thing too is that I do know so many people that where I actually had a really good friend that was obsessed with him, followed him all over the place, and it's one of those things that works for as long as you're in that like in that
Sure.
circle, and you follow him around. The moment that then you have to self motivate, it all falls apart. And the reason is because it's external motivation, right? It's external motivation, and it's not really permanent, right? It doesn't stick. It doesn't stick because it's not your own. It's not something that you came up with. You're looking for something outside of you to drag you, to motivate you to. And I, and with that, I don't want to say that that is not a very powerful support system,
Hmm.
right? It can be really good to have that kind of support network around you to do things with, to feel, to have accountability, to just create, some sort of a network of people that are doing things together, right? That can be very
Yeah.
motivational.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
the core motivation doesn't come from in here and it doesn't align with your values and with what you are pursuing in your life, then it's not going to stick. There's
It's
no
not.
two ways around it. It's not going
No.
to stick.
No. You. It has to be intrinsic because let's face it, wherever you go, guess what follows? You. It's
Yeah,
like you're everywhere, right?
can't
So
get rid of it.
you can't get rid of it. So yeah, if you're latched onto something external and it goes away, then where are you? Right? If that truly is where motivation lies, then a lot of people would be doing a whole lot better, right? So it always is. Your inner compass is always pointing to you. It's never pointing someplace else where you need to be. It's always like I thought the compass was broken, right? It's like, why is this damn thing always pointing back at me? Right? Every time I point my finger in this direction, there's like three other damn fingers pointing back at me. There's something wrong with the system. My boss is a bad boss, right? It's too much work, too much whatever, right? But really, it really is intrinsic. It's really intrinsic. And the more we get in touch with that, we actually just we do better. We just naturally do better, right? I mean, let's face it, nobody does anything in a bad mood.
I mean, you may still go to work, get your job done, and take action. It's just you're going to pay a price for it in other places in your
Oh,
life. You're not
yeah.
you're not reaching that happy place for sure,
Well,
right?
even in the mundane things, right? Like one of the examples in the book was there was a question about well, how important is state of mind in doing trivial stuff? And I think of all the times that things that were quite easy, like just send out an email or do a couple of, like for me, it's like when I do my posters and memes and advertising, right? I don't know how many times my kids or my wife would come back to me and say, you misspelt that, eh? And I go, what? It's like like I check. I don't know how many times I checked it, right? But you have to be present, right? You have to be present. If I was more present and in a more calmer state rather than being rushed to get it out, um, it might not have had a spelling error or a different date on there.
But
Or
you took action. You took action. You took
well, sure.
massive action. I love that. Take massive action. I actually coached someone, it was a couple weeks ago on this, that she was this word massive was
Yeah,
such a big, scary word to her. She kept saying, I have to take massive action. I have to take massive this, massive that. And she wasn't doing anything.
yeah.
She was frozen. I'm
Uh,
like, can we just remove the word massive
yeah,
and replace it with something more empowering? What would that word be?
yeah.
Right? And so I think what she came up with was meaningful action,
Meaningful action. Well, there.
effective action, comfortable action. We came up with a few, I can't remember exactly
Yeah.
what the word was, but I do remember that this like massive action was like, she was so frozen, right? She was so scared of it,
Well,
right?
look at the tone of even as you're
Yeah,
describing it, right? You're going
yeah,
massive action, right? And
yeah.
it's like or meaningful action. Like there's a tone, there's a natural tone between the two of them, right?
Yeah, aligned action. I think we came up with like
Yeah,
aligned
yeah,
action because when something is aligned, it becomes efficient and it becomes effortless, right?
absolutely.
And it becomes big.
and it comes
right?
fun. It becomes fun.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
becomes fun. Yeah. And
yeah.
it turns into something. So it doesn't have to be massive. The power of labels, the power of words, of language is that's another, that's another subject
That'd be another
to dive
interesting
into.
topic. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love labels. I love the topic of labels.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm just gonna write that down. But no, it's yeah, it's a great. I love it, love it, love it, love it. So
So what kind of massive action are you taking this week? Rick?
I am looking at the next step. The next step.
Which
So
is, by the way, a Tony Robbins style, right?
well, it
Take
totally is.
massive action, go do it, go do the thing.
Yeah.
It just doesn't do it for me. But again,
No. You got to do you. You've got to find you in the equation, right? Because we're all unique. That's why when I coach, it's I don't have a process. I don't have techniques. I don't have any of that kind of stuff. The client is my process. The client is my program, right? So it's all intuitively based on what is being presented, and so if I came in with an agenda of okay, I know exactly what this person needs, then I'm missing out where it needs to go. So there's and the whole notion of massive action, right? Now, this is all you need, right? Now Tony Robbins is an NLP master, right? He's a neuro linguistic programmer, and that is a very technique based coaching, right? So it's really about reframing and mind, and so their mindsets are all about reframing, very language oriented. Language is hugely important, but what
yeah,
we're
but
coming
at the same time, what massive may trigger in me may not be what it triggers in you,
no,
right? It was
absolutely.
obviously not triggering the right actions for this person, right? It was actually doing the opposite of what she
Well,
wanted to do,
totally, and
right?
that's based on like we've got, like Carl Jung talks about, we've got our own personas, right? We've got our built conditioning. If that conditioning isn't prepared for massive action, which looks like, oh, I got to be big, bold, and bright, right? And big, bold, and bright really just means, like, to me, it's bullying kind of a thing. Anybody that's coming out with big, bold, and bright is like, oh, they're big, they're bullying. But no, it's not, right. And yeah, Rob, you're absolutely right. And Adina, um it's scary. I do less. It Yeah, you got to do you. You got to do you and find out. And like you said earlier, it's about finding out and then taking feedback, finding out, taking feedback, adjusting, right? It's like sailing, right? That's how sailors get around, right? They're always constantly adjusting. They don't just set the sails and go. I tried that. Well, yeah, I used to, I had a sailboat for quite a few years. Even raced. I raced once in a world competition in Seattle. It was kind of a nice experience. And but you know, you can't just point the boat in one direction, set the sails, and then go have a beer. You you
Yeah, no.
you'll find in about 20 minutes that, geez, why are the sails flopping like this?
There was a rock right there that
And
I
there's
didn't
a
know
rock.
was
And yeah,
there.
yeah. So you got to be paying attention, right? You got to be looking for the signs and signals. And for me, the signs and signals has always been, what's my mind state? Where's my mood state?
Feelings, yeah,
Yeah,
feelings, mood,
yeah,
yeah, 100%. Emotions.
yeah, yeah.
Emotions are the body's language, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Wow, what another great conversation.
I
Thank you.
love how we manage to talk for an hour every single time.
Well, we've had a lot of practice. We've been doing this for about over a year now, right? Yeah. But this is another moment, right? Like we took a leap of faith, right? It's much easier doing this in our little private little rooms, kind of a thing where nobody's watching. But here we are, having a conversation, And and trust us, we start these meetings with basically a blank slate. Like we've got a topic, right? But we don't go, well, what are you going to say about motivate? No, we don't even go there.
I mean,
It's
I
just,
asked you to remind me what we're talking about
well, yeah,
today.
yeah, yeah. And then I'll go, what do you mean? You're not prepared? No. It's like,
I mean, I don't need to get prepared, right? Because
no, you don't. You just have to do
it's,
you.
yeah.
We all just need to do you.
I,
Not
I would
worry about
have no, I would have no business coaching anyone if I didn't know what motivation, how to talk about motivation, right?
and and really all we're talking about is from our own experience, what's true for us, what feels right for us, right? And the more in tune we get in with yourself, like all the everybody that's on here and watching the recording, then you get to know, you get, it's like riding a bike in a way, right? You eventually forget about the thinking that you can't think yourself to balance. You have to find it, right? You can't read a book about balance. You have to find it. And that's really all we're saying when it comes to motivation and being stuck. You have to find it. You have to find it within you.
It's very much yours. It's
It's
very
all
much
you.
yours.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's very much
absolutely.
yours and inner driven. I mean, there are external motivations like your children could motivate you, but it always comes back to you, right? It comes back to the love that you feel
There
for
are
them,
times when
right?
my children were
Yeah.
not motivating me. Let me just be clear.
No, no, I have a hard time believing that.
No, that's great. Anyways, thank you everybody. Appreciate you guys joining us, and those that are watching the recording. Please be sure to share this with friends and family. Like we love to get a bigger outreach and share our messages with people and
Let me see
uh,
if I can do this. How do you bring this in there?
what's
I'm
that?
trying to. Oh, I did it.
You did it. Yeah, you can bring it in more, and then you just click on it again, and it'll go away.
Sorry, guys. We did not need to record my me being tutored on how to use this thing.
And I think I know what Adita means when she says I don't believe that, because Adita just happens to be my daughter, one of my daughters. So, anyways, fabulous. So, thank you again, Fati. Thank you
Thank
everybody
you, Rick.
for joining us, and stay tuned. We'll figure out something for next week. Eh? Hey, it's Valentine's. This is the Heart Month,
Oh,
eh? So
God.
maybe we should get into some real juicy stuff, eh?
Well, we have a couple weeks.
We
Whew.
do. We do. Yeah. All right. Okay. Take care,
All
everybody.
right, Rick. You too. Nice talking to you.